Be kind to yourself.
Be kind to the minister.
Be kind to ENG Wilkins QC.
Oh my goodness. Love you guys. Catch you tomorrow. I'll be here. So please tune in. My tribe. Good morning, everyone. The ambassador is here.
Yes, Tom's kick.
Something good gonna happen in this year.
Jamaica, coming out and join the reggae music fraternity led by the Honorable Olivia Grange, Minister of Culture, for the annual Reggae Month Church Service, Sunday, February 1 at Fellowship Tabernacle, Pembroke Hall, Kingston, starting at 9 a.m. Immersed in the pulsating rhythms of roots rock reggae music. Join us for the delayed broadcast right here on CVMTV beginning at 10:30 a.m.
I'm still here. I'm still here. Yeah, never would have made it, but look where we are.
Good evening. Tonight on Lead Story, proof, policing, and the limits of human resilience. We begin with the political firestorm that has escalated from allegations to legal threats, deadlines, and claims of digital evidence. We then turn to policing and public trust, what body-worn cameras can and cannot do, and why technology does not replace investigative work. And we close with a troubling start to the year. A spike in suicides raising urgent questions about mental health, missed warning signs, and access to care. This is Lead Story. What began as public allegations has now become a high-stakes legal confrontation. On January 26, People's National Party councillor Jodi-Ann alleged on radio that she received sexually explicit WhatsApp messages from Westmoreland Central Member of Parliament Dwayne Vaz. She further claimed that after receiving those messages and refusing those alleged advances, she was blocked from constituency meetings and eventually removed as chairman of the Savannah-Lamar Division. The following day, attorneys for MP Vaz issued a formal demand for a public apology and retraction, describing the claims as entirely false and defamatory, and setting a deadline of January 30. Since then, the PNP Women's Movement has called for an internal investigation, while Jamaicans for Justice has stepped in, pointing to the Sexual Harassment Protection and Prevention Act and calling for a prompt, thorough and impartial investigation. Today, Councillor Chang has responded publicly, asserting that she has digital evidence and signaling that she does not intend to retract her claims. With us now is attorney at law Bert Samuels, who represents Member of Parliament Dwayne Vaz. Mr. Samuels, you've given Councillor Chang until 5 p.m. tomorrow, January 30, to issue a public apology and retraction. If that clock runs out and she remains silent or doubles down, are you filing the defamation lawsuit on Monday morning?
Well, we take further instructions. To file a suit does take a collective effort from lawyers. It will take us like 3 days to settle the pleadings. So yes, we will continue to act on the instructions of our client. But I don't know whether you saw the letter written by Vaz to the PNP
asking for a full investigation by the People's National Party, sending that to Mark Golding, party leader, as well as the chair of the party, Dr. Angela Brown Burke. Is that sort of investigation, one asked for by Councillor Jodi-Ann Chang and now for the PNP Women's Movement, and this investigation now requested by Dwayne Vaz, something that you think might hinder the criminal or the legal proceedings that have been argued for, or is it run side by side?
Well, they can run side by side. In fact, we were the first one, Mr. Vaz was the first one to put in writing a formal request for an investigation because he felt that to put the dirty linen in the public is not necessarily the best place to resolve this issue. However, we will see what unfolds tomorrow. If she does not apologize, we are still putting in train the whole idea of the PNP's bodies coming in to have a hearing. And Mr. Vaz in his letter said, let the chips fall where they may, because I know that he'll be vindicated, and therefore let's have an inquiry to it. Let her bring all the evidence she can, because on the radio program that she launched this attack, she was not able to provide any kind of cogent evidence. She spoke about a text about a dream where she asked him, are you drunk? But there was no pushback, no refusal, no indication that she saw it as a sexual advancement, and that she seemed to have it not bothered her 10 months ago. But with the lapse of 10 months, with the election and Mr. Vaz becoming member of parliament, she goes back in her mind and say, let me go 10 months back and bring up this allegation.
You've called it an allegation that happened 10 months ago, but there's a power dynamic here. He's a member of parliament for the constituency. She is a councillor. In her removal, in your statement, you said, or representing your client, you said that Chang's removal as chairman of the Savannah-Lamar division was a democratic process where she wasn't nominated. But she says she wasn't nominated because she was blocked and sabotaged by your client, coming out of not only the allegation of sexual harassment, but as the facts unfold, we'll see if there was more there. How do you respond to the claim that the election was merely a formalized act of retaliation for what she sees as something she couldn't complain about then because of the power dynamic, but she's seen now continued responses after?
Yeah, but what happened? There was a meeting held for an election to be held, and she attended the meeting. No one nominated her, and hence she was not on the card. For her to say she was blocked, is she speaking about a physical block, or it is that the members who voted lost confidence in her because there's an allegation that she was in support of his opponent days before the election? And that's a big mischief on her part, and therefore the membership did not see her worthy, not Mr. Vaz. You can't, after an election where people are voting freely, begin to complain that it was rigged. As she said it was rigged, she has not said that. She hasn't said that the process was tainted, so hence there can be no complaint.
Well, that certainly looks like it's a conflation of what is party procedure and what might be a legislative problem as well. Jamaicans for Justice has said in their statement that they're calling for a prompt, thorough and impartial investigation. Under the 2021 Act, and this is a Sexual Harassment Act, the burden can shift if this is what has taken place. As a senior attorney, are you concerned that a trial would force a discovery phase where your client's private communications now become public record?
Yeah, I've looked at his communications with this lady. Nothing in it is of any sexual harassment. And they're talking like they're friends. She's sending smiley faces to him. They call each other hon. You know, he says, hon, so-and-so. She replies, hon, so-and-so, with smiley face. It's good to, you know, when you're trying to bring mischief, you can extract an innocent conversation and begin to impute things in it. But she's calling him hon. Now, can a woman be sexually harassed when her answers to your question is preface with the word yes, hun, and smiley face?
I think there's going to be a lot of discussion as this gets into the public domain, as men and women have this conversation, and we now see the Sexual Harassment Act 2021 brought into this conversation as to where those lines are and where persons must now be very careful. But this is certainly something that as we watch it play out, people want to know what happens next, because is there a legal pathway that has been closed off now? Because she's also given your client a February 4 deadline in her letter from her attorney at law, Maurice McCurdy, indicating that February 4, if you don't pull back, she's willing to go to court on this matter. This is after the deadline that you have given her of tomorrow, January 30. Are we past the point where we could have some sort of amicable separation outside a court, or does this have to go now before the courts?
Well, if you love your party, which Mr. Vaz does, you would want to invite your party to deal with the matter as a first stop. He's the first person to make a formal request. Let me repeat, he's the first of the two to make a formal request for a thorough investigation. So he has taken the high ground. When they go low, he goes high.
This is,
going on public radio and talking, splurting out matters that have a political tone, undertone. It's not the way for any party, be it JLP or PNP, to deal with an issue. You don't go on in public like that. You exhaust the party structure and look for justice within the party. There's a women's movement. Wow, why didn't she
that
go
is
there
something that I want to raise for you, because this is something that you have also in representing your client spoken of, that the People's National Party Women's Movement is something that was an avenue made available for her. Patricia
right.
Duncan Sutherland, head of the women's movement, had come out in a statement saying that they wanted an investigation. They were looking into the matter, breaking her silence on that. But Jodi-Ann has pushed back, saying, and I'm paraphrasing what she said here, I have digital evidence. Does that matter then? Did she need to formally ask for the women's movement to jump in, or should they have seen the allegations and then done what needed to be done so that the People's National Party, because this is infighting in the party now, did not suffer the visible and public consequences of what's going on now?
Yes, it was the wrong move. As I said, she was the first one to go public with what should have been brought to the party in a formal way. She said she told a lot of people what happened. And when pressed in that interview and asked whether she filed it or requested the women's movement, she said no. So there's a lack of sincerity to have had this matter resolved at the party level.
All right, that is certainly something then that we're going to be watching and seeing, not only what takes place tomorrow on January 30, the 5 o'clock deadline looming, as you and your client have made very clear that's important to you, and a separate deadline that has been raised on February 4 on the part of Julian Cameron. Now, I have you here, so here's what I have to do with you. I have to ask you a question about a separate matter. Senior Superintendent Wayne Cameron. In a separate legal matter, you're also attorney for SSP Cameron. The DPP has recommended charges of larceny and fraud against your client, and we now heard today that he met with the police. Has he yet been charged?
He has been charged, he has been charged, and he's now offered bail, and he's on his way home. Yes, but there's a very egregious matter that arose this afternoon that we have to go public with, unfortunately.
What is that egregious matter?
The egregious matter is that this is a senior superintendent of police. He has given 34 years service to the police force. He's a crime fighter. He's still a member of the force now. He's still a serving member at this time. And do you believe that after he was charged, his service pistol was taken from him? And when I asked the arresting officer, he said that those were directives from the police high command. The commissioner of police has disarmed this crime fighter. For, if you believe in the presumption of innocence, and, the police ought to practice this, why do you do that to a senior member of the crime fighter, to disarm him and put him in danger's way?
There's been a tension, though, between Commissioner of Police, Dr. Kevin Blake, and SSP Cameron now, with him requesting his removal as the head of the Police Officers Association. Do you believe that these are connected?
Definitely. So the chronology is very important. The public has seen this happening. The Commissioner of Police had a big pushback from the court that he did not, do the right thing, and therefore, when my client got leave from the court, it was an embarrassment to the police commissioner, because he sought to railroad the removal of a serving officer. He didn't give him due process. He didn't allow him to be heard. He just did it in a high-handed way. And the court said not so. And then he has appealed. Now, soon after, these charges come up, which go back to 2019. So didn't the police know about this from 2019? Did they know about it in 2020, 2021, 22, 23, 24? Why now? The public knows why it's happening now.
Senior Attorney at Law Bert Samuels talking to us not only about the case involving Senior Superintendent Wayne Cameron at the end there, but also talking to us about the circumstances involving the case with Member of Parliament Darrell Vaz. He's attorney at law in both those matters, and we're glad that you're able to join us this evening to speak to us on that.
Thank you.
Jamaica's unemployment rate has fallen to 3.3%, down from 13.2% in 2016. Our government's continued focus on job creation is delivering real results. We are building Jamaica. The Time by the Office of the Prime Minister.
The National Rural School Bus Program is getting smarter. With your child's student ID card, parents receive real-time notifications every time they board or exit the bus. Each card is unique and securely linked to the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth, and Information database. Tap on, tap off, and parents stay updated instantly. So, how do you register? Number 1, visit jamaica-district.mysmartterm.com/bus-portal/registration. Number 2, enter your child's details. Number 3, upload supporting documents. Number 4, submit your application. It's that easy. Safer, smarter, more secure. Register.
We're moving from a case where we discuss not only Dwayne Vaz MP and the controversy involving the People's National Party and Councillor Jodi-Ann to then a discussion about Senior Superintendent of Police Wayne Cameron to now talking more broadly about the police. Because when Mark Shields arrived in Jamaica from Scotland Yard 2 decades ago, he was famously described as the officer who changed policing in Jamaica. He's seen the Jamaica Constabulary Force at its most old school and its most modern. But today we aren't just talking about gadgets. We're talking about the integrity of evidence. From the discovery of cocaine in the heart of Sea Talk last week to the massive rollout of 1,000 new body-worn cameras this month, we're asking if the technology is finally catching up to the crime, or if the human element remains our weakest link. Mark Shields, a former Deputy Police Commissioner and security consultant, has written that body-worn cameras do not stop bullets, they stop lies. So we're going to figure out what that means by inviting Mark Shields inside Lead Story. Mark Shields, thanks so much for joining us inside the show. I think you're muted, Mark Shields, as you speak to us because we're not able to hear you. Because we want to make sure that as we have this conversation, someone of your expertise and experience is ultimately somebody that we want to get the perspective of, especially given your article having written that in the Jamaica Gleaner. last week. This is certainly something.
Try again.
Yep, let's try again. Mark Shields, thanks for joining us.
That's right. The schoolboy error of not unmuting yourself when you go into a live interview.
There you go. But you know what? We believe in you, and you have some time with us today to talk to us about what's going on inside Jamaica, what you are seeing, and also some reflections that you have had. You recently wrote an article talking about body-worn cameras. That's been a big talking point coming out of not only the reduction in crimes in 2025, major crimes including murders, but also then a concern about the escalation in police-involved shootings. So, explain to us from your vantage point what body-worn cameras are actually designed to do.
Well, body-worn cameras, they're there to protect the police and to protect the public. It's technology that's been used throughout the world for the last, I would say, 20 years. Long overdue in Jamaica, but for various reasons, including resources and finance, it's taken a while to arrive. I know that the Commissioner of Police, Dr. Kevin Blake, has spent some significant time with his team choosing and procuring the right equipment. And that's really important because I think in the past, monies have been spent from donors, particularly the United States, and we've ended up with equipment that wasn't exactly what they needed. But now they have something, the Access 3 body-worn camera, which is renowned throughout the world as a good piece of kit. And what does it do? Well, it adds real value to the truth, accountability. It protects good officers and the confidence for the public as well. As I said in the article, it doesn't stop bullets, but it does stop lies, and that's false allegations on both sides. It can be at times that the public may have snippets of what's gone on, which we'll see turning up on social media, but it gives the police the opportunity to show their side of the story. It also improves integrity as well and transparency, and allows people to see what actually happened. So really, it's a win-win for all sides. There have been some scaremongering, some articles have been written which I think have not told the whole truth and nothing but the truth, but I think the majority of police, and certainly the High Command of the Commissioner, are welcoming this sort of technology as just another tool within the box of technology that the police need in the 21st century.
All right, they don't stop bullets, but they stop lies. But with 1,000 more cameras coming on stream, the public is watching. Are they expecting crime prevention when the real value is evidence after the fact?
Well, I think the public are already watching because there are not many people walking around the streets of Jamaica without a cell phone, with a camera facility, and everybody's very keen to pick it up. And in fact, sometimes we see that they're picking up to record something when perhaps they should be jumping in to help. I'm talking about road traffic collisions and other incidents where people are clearly in distress and may be injured, but people tend to go for their phones. What we're trying to do, I think, in Jamaica is to look at both sides of the story, as I've said. I'll give you some very topical examples that have happened recently. If you look at both of the fatal shootings that happened in Minnesota committed by ICE officers within the last 2 to 3 weeks, body-worn cameras have shown that perhaps on those occasions, and I think the evidence is out there, that the ICE officers could have done a lot better.
And those are the shootings of Alex Pretty in Minnesota, as well as Rachel Good, things that have now gone global in people under Renee Good. So things that have gone global now in helping us understand not only the impact of seeing these visuals, but also the concerns that are being raised about immigration and customs enforcement officers in the United States.
Yeah, if you take the first one, for example, you know, the lady was sitting in her car, and you can see she had her arm out the window. She was quite relaxed the way she spoke to the police. And I think the video evidence speaks for itself. And one of the cameras, and probably the most telling, is the police body-worn camera. I'll move across to the United Kingdom 2 years ago when there was an incident at Manchester International Airport where it looked as if the police had engaged in some really heavy-handed brutality against a group of Asians, one of whom was being held on the floor. And that went viral, and everybody thought, my God, this is a classic case of racist police brutality. But eventually the body-worn cameras were released, and we saw that it was a legitimate stop initially, and the violence that was perpetrated against the police officers was outrageous. And those men, I think one woman, were eventually convicted based on body-worn cameras, civilian cell phones, and also CCTV. So you'll see this conglomeration of evidence coming from each angle, the public, the police, and CCTV, which culminated in rightful convictions of brutality against the police. So as I said, it works both ways. It protects the police, but it also protects the public. And these are three prime examples that not even in Jamaica, where we have shown the validity of these devices.
Well, then help us understand some of the operational realities of it, because there have been body-worn cameras received here and they haven't been able to be used. It's something that you spoke of at the very start. There have been discussions about us implementing them and what goes on with them. But help us understand the realities. Battery life, buffering, and what happens in high-stress encounters when cameras can fail. If we're to be depending on them to give us this evidence, talk to us about the circumstances around which we can use them.
Well, first and foremost, they're not the silver bullet. We're not going to rely totally on body-worn cameras. There are lots of other issues around gathering evidence, as you know. For example, when the police officer legitimately stops a vehicle, searches the vehicle, and may find some contraband, maybe an illegal firearm, there is no better evidence than using body-worn cameras or other CCTV evidence gathering facilities that the police actually have already. The rollout has been long, and I've actually spoken to senior officers about this, including the Commissioner. It has taken time, and the reason being, they want to get it right first time. They want to buy the right technology. They want to ensure that the evidence that's gathered from cameras is stored properly. There's proper governance, which is really important. And then finally, of course, in an incident perhaps where a police officer is being investigated, maybe for some form of brutality or just, disrespect towards a member of the public, that evidence has to stand up in court. It has to be given in a form of an independent investigation body. And that's where the transparency comes in. So, it's not everything, but it helps. Because you think about any incident, there's other evidence that can be gathered. The physical evidence itself, it could be injuries to an officer or to a member of the public. There are lots of other aspects that bring the whole thing together. But the first and foremost important thing about body-worn cameras particularly is the integrity of it. And I know that Commissioner Blake has gone to great lengths to ensure that everything that's put in place backs up the officers, backs up members of the public when they come into contact with the police.
This has been a long process. There have been people talking about the camera, then the evidence storage investigators, Indicom, DPP, then the court. And we have a graphic here showing how the footage is used. But you need the footage. When the camera is turned off during a use of force incident, when we don't have the footage, what should the consequences be for this system if it's now to be put in place to retain credibility?
Well, I think the consequences are very serious, because if a police officer is issued with a piece of equipment such as the body-worn camera, and if that officer, male or female, intentionally turns it off, the consequences can be great, particularly if we ended up with a member of the public who may be injured or even worse. So that'd be quite serious. But that's why the policy has taken time to ensure that that's happened. The police will want to train their officers properly, and also when there has been an event on either side, that those packages can be used at a later date for training as well. So that's really, really important to make sure that the integrity, as I've said, and therefore the confidence that the public and the police have in the equipment is important. I'd make a further point as well. I've seen some commentators say, well, you know what, these cameras can fall off, they can get damaged, or they've got this little light on the end which acts as almost a target for any criminal pointing a firearm at the police. If you think about it, we've all seen footage of body-worn cameras, not just used by the police, but by armed forces throughout the world. We've seen them used in Afghanistan, Iraq, and other war settings, and they don't fall off. They're designed in such a way that they're either fitted to the helmet or to the chest of the police officer in order to ensure the integrity of it, that the camera follows the line of sight that the officer is in. The sound quality is really good. And I go back to the make and model that the Commissioner has chosen with his team, the Axis 3. It's an internationally recognised body-worn camera with integrity that's been tested in court, and therefore we should not have any of those problems. So yes, there'll be human error, or it could be that intentionally cameras could be turned off. But if that happens, then people will be dealt with those consequences.
Well, they'll be dealt with, you say. We'll continue this conversation. Stay with us. We return to why real crime solving, though, happens far from the spotlight. Next, Inside Lead Story.
Jamaica, coming out and join the reggae music fraternity led by the Honorable Olivia Grange, Minister of Culture, for the annual Reggae Month Church Service, Sunday, February 1 at Fellowship Tabernacle, Pembroke Hall, Kingston, starting at 9 a.m. Immersed in the pulsating rhythms of roots rock reggae music. Join us for the delayed broadcast right here on CVMTV beginning at 10:30 a.m.
I'm still here, I'm still here, yeah. Never would have made it, but look where we are.
If you're a woman in business, it's time to go bigger.
Your ambition is calling, and Horizon for Women in Business is answering.
Horizon, a new loan product from Access Financial Services designed for women entrepreneurs to unlock the capital you need to grow and take your business beyond limits. With quick approval, flexible repayment, and low interest rates, your success is on the horizon.
Call us now. The funds are waiting.
Your success is on the horizon.
Set, go. Question: what matters the most to perform your best on a Sigma race day?
Speed.
No, what really matters is what's in here, your heart.
Sagicor Sigma Run. Register now at sagicorsigmarun.com.
Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
Now we're talking about solving crime, why investigations matter. Because as we talk about body-worn cameras, we're also talking about the work of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. And serious crimes are rarely solved by patrol alone. We're seeing them being solved through patience, intelligence, and investigative work that often remains invisible to the public. A recent multi-million-dollar fraud case in Cherry Gardens took not 1 month, not 2 months, but 18 months of investigation by the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency and the Financial Investigations Division. Mark Shields is still with us. Mark Shields, explain the difference between reactive policing and the kind of investigative policing that we've been seeing over the past few months.
Well, it's not the past few months. It's been going on for years.
But Mark Shields, to be very fair, for many Jamaicans, they're looking and they're seeing more of this. They're seeing it ramp up. They're seeing a sort of a snowball in a way that before we would have said it was happening, but it felt more infrequent than we're seeing nowadays.
I think if you go back to the days of Operation Kingfish, which I know was some significant time ago, I can remember every few weeks and certainly every few months, there are arrests by Kingfish of major kingpins in organised crime. It's not new, but what's happening now is, and I think that is the way that it is snowballing, is that the police with MOCA and all of the other agencies working together, as they have never done before, they're getting fantastic results. And it's not unusual for any case involving organised crime. Now, whether that's fraud, money laundering, narcotics, firearms trafficking, they're all the same. They all come with the same tools as far as the police are concerned. It's just the criminals are operating in different formats. But at the end of the day, you've got organised crime, and it takes months, if not years on occasions, in order to get to the bottom of that, to get the kingpins, to pick up all the various sections within that. Organised crime networks, they're not lone offenders. They work as a business. They work as an enterprise. You have people at the top. If it's within a bank, you have people working within the bank, people working on the outside. Those who are involved in IT, of course, which are more and more is more important now. If it's drugs and narcotics, you have the mules who are bringing the drugs into or outside the country. Again, leading all the way up to those at the top. So everything in some ways is very similar in terms of a criminal enterprise. Everything is compartmentalized. So if one section is taken out, it's quite evident and quite often that they know very little about who may be running the whole criminal organization. It's compartmentalized for a good reason. So that's why it takes the police sometimes years in order to get to the bottom. There have been significant changes though, and I think the first thing I'd say is, we go back to the cell phone. The cell phone has been a major change in the last 20 years. Police resources in terms of analysing cell phones, laptops and other technology is now a major part of crime investigation, both proactively, which means using methodology to find out what is on somebody's phone or on somebody's laptop before they're caught, or indeed the whole process of once they've been investigated and arrested and there's sufficient evidence, that whole process of going through laptops, cell phones and other IT devices is a massive task. And you'll see that within the Jamaica Constabulary Force, within MOCA as well, there's been an explosion in that part of the business. But let me tell you, the equipment they use costs, in some cases, millions of US dollars in order to get into those phones and laptops. And then, of course, we have the people being trained to do that as well. So crime investigation has become far more sophisticated than it was, say, 20 years ago and even 10 years ago.
Well, the investigation gets more complex, but people's patience does not lengthen to accompany that. In a country where people demand instant arrest, how do you explain the value of long-term intelligence-led investigations?
Well, I think this might sound patronizing, but we all watch too much TV and everything is dealt with in, say, a season with 6 episodes or 12 episodes, and life isn't like that. It's painstaking, it's slow. As I said, the important thing to remember about Jamaica, as with other parts of the world, agencies work together far more closely than they used to. Everyone supports everybody else. 20 years ago, we didn't have MOCA, we had Kingfish. We've seen that FID, the Financial Investigation Division, is taking a far more proactive role within crime investigations. The laws have changed significantly around money laundering. If people are now found with, say, 4 or 5 million Jamaica dollars in a particular location, they have to answer the questions about where that money came from. So the law has changed as well. I can take another example, which is the anti-gang legislation, which did not exist 20 years ago. So all of the tools in terms of legislation have changed and made it far easier for the police to prosecute, backed up with multi-agency approach, working together in order that we can get to the bottom of crime. But it always takes time. If you rush an investigation, the chances are it's going to fail. Police as well, they work with, law enforcement works with the DPP and with lawyers. The Jamaica Constabulary Force has in-house lawyers now working to a level where they ensure that mistakes are not made. So there are many moving parts to this. I'm not particularly concerned about how long it takes. My concern always is going to be that they get it right first time.
That's you watching with an understanding of what this process looks like. But for those watching on the outside, perhaps your explanation would have at least reassured them that unlike their favorite TV show that ends in an hour, they're not going to be able to get a quick resolution, but it is in fact happening. You also spoke, though, about unexplained wealth legislation in broad terms, people having money that they can't account for. That's been a big legislative ask that has not yet borne fruit, but we're seeing the steps that are being taken. Inside the Jamaican Constabulary Force as well, though, we've seen major developments. Last week, we saw that explosive development shared by the JCF to the public involving the discovery of cocaine inside the CTOC storage. So that's the cyber, and organized crime.
Counterterrorism and Organized Crime Branch of the JCF. There we go. And FNID, Firearms and Narcotics Investigative Division, which is underneath them, removed. That's a substantial organizational change coming out of that. Now, that's inside the JCF. The people doing the work are now having the eyes and the lights shone on them. Does that signal failure, or does that show that internal accountability is working inside the JCF as well?
There's nothing worse than a retired police officer saying, in my day, or when I was there, but I'm going to have to say it on this occasion. When I first came to Jamaica, I think I can fairly say that corruption was pretty rife, and we had some pretty bad police officers. And over the years, things have improved significantly. I can recall it wasn't unusual to find police officers in court basically every week, but certainly every month, for serious crime, including drug trafficking and other offences. And I think that over the years we've seen less and less and less of that. And the reason is that I think the Jamaica Constabulary Force, along with the other agencies that support them, have weeded out much of the corruption and the criminality that was there 20 years ago. That doesn't mean that we can be complacent, because as we've seen, people are still being arrested that wear a uniform, that carry the badge for serious crime. It happens, but it doesn't happen just in Jamaica. Unfortunately, within my former force, the Metropolitan Police Service in London, the Commissioner of Police in the last, I think it's 3 years, has weeded out 1,500 police officers who have been suspected of crime or who have not lived up to the standard, and the integrity that they supposedly have has been questioned and they have been removed. The same thing has happened in Jamaica. People strive to get rid of the bad apples because, again, it's a bit of a cliche, but they go out there and most of them do an excellent job, a very difficult and dangerous job. But from time to time, yes, we're going to find people in any organisation. You know, look at banks, for example. We've seen there people are vetted, they're going to work for banks, and some unfortunately end up working as insiders for criminal organisations. It does happen. And I'm not going to say that things are perfect, but I do have confidence that the Commissioner, the other agencies are working hard to weed out those individuals that undermine the integrity of the organisation and indeed the confidence the public can have in it. But the fact that we see these arrests from time to time, we see police officers taken before the courts, and sometimes from my time on, ending up with life imprisonment for offences such as murder, prove that the system and justice works.
All right, well, that's going to be important for many Jamaicans listening to you, seeing what's going on, expressing their concerns. But this seems to give you confidence rather than take away any that you might have in the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Well, let me put on your thinking cap for me, Mark Shields, because you are former Deputy Commissioner of Police. You sit in a room with Commissioner of Police, Dr. Kevin Blake. The rest of Jamaica gets to watch. What do you say to him as we now see not only the incredible reduction in murders 2025, we see the increases in police-involved shootings, we see discussions about body-worn cameras and us finally getting them, and we see now CTOC having this massive explosive development with cocaine being found inside CTOC storage and an organizational change. What do you say to him?
I say keep on doing what you're doing, Commissioner Blake. You're doing a fantastic job. Your team is doing a really good job as well. Kevin Blake, I've known him for as long as I've been in Jamaica. So since he was, say, a junior senior officer, let's put it that way. And the one thing that he has is a very good knowledge of technology. His background is in technology, and he has embraced it 100%, and he's ensuring that the Jamaica Constabulary Force is really forced into the 21st century. If you went to the JCF Expo some months ago and you saw the technology that's available, it will give you some idea of where we have come from. You know, 20 years ago, when I first came here, you know, we were using black and white photography. We didn't have video photography. We didn't have imaging video rooms. We didn't have any of the ability that is now there to work with it. On top of that, they're using social media now far more than it was ever used before, and I think that in itself instills confidence in for the public to turn to the police. There are many, many good things happening. Yes, there will be setbacks.
Yes.
But on the whole, things are going really well. And I want to commend the Commissioner and the rest of the team for the massive work last year in reducing the murder rate quite significantly.
Well, that's a lot to say to the Commissioner. I'm sure Jamaicans want to hear more as we not only look at what the Jamaica Constabulary Force has been able to do, but also some of the challenges they have in the future. Former Deputy Commissioner of Police and Security Consultant Mark Shields, thanks so much for joining us inside Lead Story.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, we're going to take a break and come back to you. A more sober end to today's show because we are now starting off the year with an increase in suicides. We'll talk about why that is happening next inside Lead Story.
Jamaica, coming out and join the reggae music fraternity led by the Honorable Olivia Grange, Minister of Culture, for the annual Reggae Month Church Service, Sunday, February 1 at Fellowship Tabernacle, Pembroke Hall, Kingston, starting at 9 a.m. Immersed in the pulsating rhythms of roots rock reggae music. Join us for the delayed broadcast right here on CVMTV beginning at 10:30 a.m.
I'm still here, I'm still here, yeah. Never would have made it, but look where we are.
Everybody want to see a country right now.
One thing about Jamaicans, we might have differences, but we know when something is good for all of us. And when we work together against crime and violence, we are stronger than ever. And that's how we know the Citizen Security Plan can work.
That one that name CSP.
The Citizen Security Plan is an initiative of the Ministry of National Security in partnership with the European Union. It's an all-of-government effort to create safer streets and build stronger communities. Go to mns.gov.jm to learn how you can play your part.
We now turn to a deeply troubling start to the year. As of late January, the Jamaica Constabulary Force reports 14 suicides, a sharp spike compared to previous years. Men, particularly those over 40, continue to be disproportionately affected. Joining us is psychiatrist and president of the Jamaica Psychiatric Association, Dr. Brian Kazara. Dr. Kazara, welcome to Lead Story. Dr. Kazara?
Yes, good evening. Thank you for having me again.
Thanks for joining us. This is sobering as a start to the new year. Explain from your vantage point what's most concerning about the current pattern we are seeing.
Okay, so again, thank you for having me here. Of course, there are a few things that are concerning. Once we see that these numbers are continuing to either stay at the same rate or increase, that should always be a cause for concern, and that has generally been the trend. Naturally, we'd prefer if we were to see just a significant decline, but I'm really happy that you emphasized that men are disproportionately affected. In Jamaica, generally speaking, men are 8 times more likely to complete suicide, and that puts us amongst the countries with the highest disparity when it comes to completion of suicide in the world between men and women. So we're seeing that it really does affect our men in a notable way, and it's affecting men who are still in that stage of life where they should be contributing productively to their families, in their workspace, and in their communities. So it's a huge loss for our society.
This is, in fact, a serious and significant thing that we're noticing here. You use the word complete suicides. This is language that separates completion from attempts. Talk to us about that and explain why men, especially older men, are so overrepresented in these statistics.
Okay, so, we always need to be careful with our language when we're talking about such sensitive topics. And so for a lot of us in the field, we prefer to use the term complete as opposed to using other terms. Now, attempts are when somebody will actually try to inflict harm on themselves. They may not be successful for whatever reason. Sometimes the method that was employed may not have been entirely well thought out, or there may have been some error as they were trying to go through with it. So when we say complete suicide, we're really saying that they've actually managed to actually bring an end to their life. And so that's where we make the differentiation. Now, as to the reason why men are disproportionately affected, so we don't necessarily have a large amount of research on this in Jamaica, though I know there are persons who are trying to explore this in an empirical way. But generally speaking, what we do know is that men tend to be less likely to seek mental health care in general. And men also are more likely to kind of keep it bottled in and not share it with their loved ones and those around them. In addition to that, generally speaking, men are more likely to turn to negative or maladaptive coping mechanisms when they're dealing with high levels of stress, such as substance abuse or drinking too much alcohol or smoking too heavily. And because of this, they're not necessarily able to deal with some of the negative emotions they have in a productive way, and that actually puts them at greater risk for engaging in self-harming behavior.
Youth are also represented in the statistics. They might not complete suicides, but suicidal ideation among the youth is very high. 1 in 4 report suicidal ideation, 1 in 10 report attempts. Are we as a country, you believe, sensitive enough to what's going on with our youth, or do we just have the feeling that they shouldn't be having problems just yet in life?
That's an excellent question. I'm thankful for you to bring this to the attention of our audience. So firstly, in general, before I even go into suicide, I think there's an acceptance now that we don't necessarily have the full capacity to deal with the demand for child and adolescent mental health care in Jamaica. So based on studies that have been done and a very good research paper by CAPRI, the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, some years back, it showed that for the number of children that we project have significant mental health issues or challenges, the number of professionals that are available or institutions that are available to address their unique needs does not quite meet the demand. So already there, we know that there's a significant gap that exists. Now, when it comes to suicide, especially amongst our youth, unfortunately, there's some unhelpful sociocultural beliefs that still exist. Many people see thoughts of harming themselves as something that is a sign of weakness, that's something that's very taboo, and certainly even in the high school setting, amongst peers, amongst parents, even amongst some teachers, even talks, if you were to mention that you're having these thoughts, sometimes they can be met with very unfavorable comments. And so what could have been a useful outlet for a young person actually now becomes a very negative situation and doesn't help them in terms of trying to prevent them from engaging in that type of behavior. So I do believe that we need to try and see if we can shift the culture and discussion when it comes to these thoughts in young people and try and be a lot more supportive and empathetic. I think that really would go a long way.
Before we close, Doc, tell viewers where they can get help right now if they are having these thoughts or know persons around them who might need help and support.
All right, great question. So first and foremost, I want to say for persons who might be experiencing these thoughts, that it's best that you reach out to someone, reach out to a trusted person. If you can, that can be a parent, that can be a friend, a spouse, maybe somebody in the community who you trust. Reach out, do not keep it to yourself. Many times, you may not necessarily have persons around you who are well equipped or even perhaps willing to assist. And in cases like that, remember that you always have the mental health hotline. That's 1-888-NEW-LIFE or 1-888-639-5433. Also, we have our public hospitals and our public health centers and clinics. They're always available to deal with mental health issues as they arise. Even if they can't deal with it in that setting immediately, they will refer you appropriately. And also, lastly, I just want to talk about the You Matter health chat line for young people. If you send a message to say support, SUPPORT, to 876-4897, they also provide support for young persons. We're talking about children and adolescents who may have mental health challenges. So we have the hotlines, we have our public hospitals, and we have our health centers as well.
And let me just say that number again, 876-838-4897. That's the You Matter chat line for persons aged 16 to 24. You can send support and get help there. Dr. Brian Kazara, thank you so much for talking to us about this sensitive but difficult matter at this time.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. All the best.
All the best to you, Dr. Kazara, ending off our show tonight with important information. If you need help, you can contact the Mental Health and Suicide Hotline, or you can go to that's 888 New Life, or if you're someone 16 to 24, you can go to the You Matter chat line. Text support to 876-838-4897. Today's program, it's not about scandal. I know you heard the drama in the PNP starting off the show and what's happening with SSP Cameron, but it's not about that. It's about systems and what happens when they're tested. We saw how allegations became legal battles and how the demand for proof can quickly collide with power, process, and political self-preservation. And in our conversation with Mark Shields, we were reminded that technology, no matter how sophisticated, does not create accountability. Cameras do not police themselves. Investigations do not run on headlines, and truth is not produced by equipment alone, but by integrity and consequence. Finally, we saw the most quiet failure of all, the human one, where pressure builds, warning signs are missed, and suffering remains unaddressed until it's too late. A society can demand proof, it can invest in policing, but if it fails to protect its people and its institutions and their minds, then accountability remains incomplete. That is the story tonight. I'm Jodi-Ann Quarry, and on behalf of the entire CVM production team, thank you for watching Lead Story. Have a fantastic evening, and I hope you stay safe. Up next, CVM News at 7.